before the ships, before the chains, before the grim Middle Passage, something else happened, something most history books never fully explain. How did slavery actually begin in Africa? Was it created by Europeans? Was it part of African society long before colonization? And how did it transform into the brutal transatlantic trade that changed the world forever? Today, we uncover the truth, the real origins of slavery in Africa. Many people believe slavery began in Africa with European contact, but the story is far older, and far more complex. Centuries before the first Portuguese ships touched West Africa's shores, African kingdoms practiced forms of servitude. But it wasn't the brutal race-based system the Atlantic slave trade would later create. In most African societies, slaves were, well, usually prisoners of war, people paying off debts, or sometimes criminals being punished. And surprisingly, they could often marry into families' own property, or even gain their freedom over time. This was not yet the monstrous system the world would later witness. Everything changed in the 1400s. When Portuguese sailors reached the West African coast, they weren't just exploring, they were looking for labor. Europe needed workers for its new colonies, sugar plantations, and growing empires. At first, the Portuguese traded goods like guns, textiles, alcohol, and metal tools. African rulers in turn traded gold, ivory, and captives from local conflicts. What began as a small trade quickly exploded. The demand for human beings in the Americas skyrocketed. Europeans wanted more, and African leaders saw an opportunity. Powerful African states like Dahomey, Benin, and Ashanti soon realized they could grow stronger through this trade. Wars were fought specifically to capture people. Villages were raided. Millions were marched to the coast. A system that was once local and limited turned into a massive commercial industry powered by European money and African political competition. So, this is where the story becomes truly tragic. Some African leaders did try to stop the trade, while others, well, they profited from it. But honestly, none of them fully realized the long-term consequences. Here's the truth. Slavery in Africa didn't begin with Europeans, but Europeans transformed it into something Africa had never seen before. The Atlantic slave trade became, race-based, inherited for life, brutally commercialized, and global in scale. Over 12 million Africans were taken across the Atlantic, entire civilizations were destabilized, and, the effects still shape the world today. So, how did slavery really start in Africa? It began as a local system, became a regional trade, and exploded into a global catastrophe once Europeans arrived. History is never simple, but honestly, understanding it is essential. If you want more deep dives into hidden African history, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me which topic you want next.